Welcome to This is the Day on Family Radio and Family TV. I will be giving you an update on COVID-19 this hour. I'll also be telling you about the conversation about your rights as a tenant and as a landlord. But right about now, let's start with some accountability issues where NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua is demanding accountability and transparency. Karua decried rampant corruption in the government, saying the CS for Health, that is Mutahi Kagwe, should come clean on how personal protective equipment's PPEs and monies were allocated. This comes after an expose by a local daily on how billions of shillings circulated and the firms at both the national and county level got paid in a supplies frenzy that has created several COVID-19 millionaires during this pandemic. Let's listen into what Karua had to say.
Billions of shillings are being spent on projects with questionable public utility value. Billions more have been spent on building bridges where there are no rivers. In essence, breaking bridges initiative. We can no longer accept to tie the destiny of tens of millions of Kenyans to the short-term and selfish desires of a heartless leadership. We state unequivocally that President Kenyatta's private interests and 2022 succession must not be forced down the throats of Kenyans when his government remains incapable of doing what governments are supposed to do, which is take care of citizens and do no harm to them. At a moment of great anxiety and vulnerability, both state-led corruption and a misplaced obsession with succession politics are hurting Kenya's constitutional right to health care, education, food, shelter, and jobs.
Let's move on to some COVID-related issues. And Kenya has confirmed 26,928 cases of the coronavirus as of today, following the recording of 492 more patients after the testing of 4,603 samples over the last 24 hours. That is Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe in the daily briefing which he gave from Kericho County, also announced that 3 more patients had died from complications related to the virus, raising the total to 423. CS Kagwe said another 534 patients had been discharged, 478 from home care and 56 from hospitals, increasing the number to 13,495. Let's listen in.
We have 492 more COVID-19 infections out of a sample of 4,063 over the last 24 hours only. In total now, the confirmed numbers are 26,928. While the cumulative tests stand at 358,330. Among the new cases are some 478 are Kenyans, while 14 are foreigners. Once again, male 331, when we have got 161 women. The youngest confirmed case is 11 months old infant, and the oldest is 83. Some 534 patients have recovered and have been discharged. Amongst those, 56 were from different hospitals, while 478 were in the home-based care program. And this is a phenomenon that we continue to observe, where home-based care programs are better, people are getting better faster, and so far, so good. But you can get it, I can get it, you can get it too. So don't sing a song of anybody who is sick and make it a negative one.
Anyone can get it. The CS also urged Kenyans who have been affected by the coronavirus to be open about their status.
I would also urge those of us who contact the virus, don't hide it. Don't hide. It's no biggie. Don't hide it. Let the people know. If you have got friends and so on, let them know that you are staying away in isolation because you have got COVID-19, and sooner than later it will be all over. So there is no reason to go out of your way, as we were saying yesterday, for doctors to hide that you are not COVID-19, for you to deny that you are COVID-19, even when we know for a fact that you have got COVID-19, for people to pass away with COVID-19, and we want to deny those facts. You know, this is not necessary, because it is an infectious disease, and there is no reason for anybody to shy away or feel that they have got anything that other people don't have.
As the CS has said, actually COVID-19 is not a death sentence. So if you know very well that you have COVID-19, don't hide anywhere, because at the end of the day, if you come out and you go to the hospitals for checkup, there's a high chance that you will survive. And you know very well that members of the county assembly from 10 frontier counties in the arid and semi-arid areas are opposed to the third basis revenue allocation sharing formula that will see at least 20 counties lose 19 billion shillings if implemented. Representatives of county speakers from the affected counties have urged senators to urgently agree to a win-win formula that will ensure the already marginalized areas are not further than disadvantaged. Led by the Marsabit County Speaker Matthew Loitome, the leaders say the minimum out of the current interest will be to maintain the status quo.
Proposes to reduce the allocation of funds to our counties. Ongoing projects will stall, and the monies invested already will go to the drain. This means that more people, instead of getting out of poverty, will plunge deeper into poverty and creating more challenges for the nation. The wise thing to do is not to reduce resources, but to keep them consistent, if increasing is not possible. We urge the Senate to come up with a formula that will ensure that already marginalized areas are not further disadvantaged. Minimum is to maintain status quo.
This formula violates the principles of equity enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya, like Article 203, Article 43 that speaks about economic and social rights. Article 43 actually talks about the Big Four agenda of the President, and if a region then is not given its fair share, then all those things will just be on paper and will never be achieved.
Remaining with 1 billion. It's like saying we are going to shut down Marsabit County. So really, are we going to sit there and just agree to lose devolution again? We have facilities that are ongoing, projects that are ongoing already. Some of them flagship projects. And if we cut on resource allocation for those counties, then those projects will stall.
You know, talking about money in this country, when it comes to allocating money, there must always be some push and pull here and there, because money is something of interest to everyone in this country, apparently. Let's talk about something to go with churches, and we talk about Salvation Army. Well, the Salvation Army Church has called on the government to allow churches to resume Sunday school services as a way of reducing adverse consequences of school closures. Western church leaders who converged at Kakamega called on the local government to allow young children to attend special church services where they can be taught how to survive during this time when schools are closed. Kenyan children have been out of school since March.
Hatukiendelea vizuri, basi waruhusu hata wale wasee wa miaka 58 na kuendelea pia waruhusiwe waje kanisani. Lakini kama kwa kufungua makanisa vile walifungua, ugonjwa imetokea tena kanisani, basi tusema labda tupunguze. Na hata watoto wetu katika Sunday school hawachi. Kanisa inafunza watoto morals, good morals, maisha mazuri. Lakini sasa maana wako nje nyumbani, wanakosa nafasi ya kufundishwa tabia nzuri na jinsi ya kuishi.
I'm very curious if the government today allowed actually Sunday school children to go and attend the Sunday school services, would you as a parent or you as an uncle or an auntie allow your kid actually to go out there and attend such kind of a services during this COVID-19 period? Okay, let's move on to some story about the Cabinet Secretary of Tourism, that is Najib Balala, who has joined the world in celebrating World's Lions Day. The CS announced the Lion and the Hyena Strategy 2020-2030, whose intention is to grow the number of lions in our country. This celebration of the animal kingdom most beautiful and fearsome creature was founded by Big Cat Rescue, the world cat largest accredited sanctuary dedicated to big cats. August 10th is a day for people to come together from across the world to pay tribute to lions in as many ways as possible.
Today we are celebrating the Lions International Day. We have launched the Lion and the Hyena strategy for 2020 to 2030. Our intention is to grow the numbers of lions. 2 years ago, we had 1,970 lions. Now we have 2,489 lions in Kenya. Still, we believe the numbers are too small. The most important thing, we need to involve the communities. With the problem of lions, they need space and they need to hunt. And sometimes there's a conflict between communities and wildlife. That's why we need to coexist as a people, because animals, wildlife are our national heritage and we must protect them. We don't just protect them because Kenya needs it. No, it's the world that needs it. Happy Lions Day.
Actually, you know, they are saying that the strategy is 2020-2030, which involves both the lion and the hyena. And they're talking about beauty. And I'm wondering, how does beauty come in with hyena for me? And, you know, earlier I had a conversation with Kevin Doho, an advocate on matters tenants, right? And I started by asking him, what are the rights of tenants?
Some of the rights a landlord is supposed to give to a tenant include quiet possession and the occupation of the demised properties. There should be no take back of these rights. For example, leasing the neighboring property to another activity that will make the lease to the tenant impossible to perform. So, for example, you cannot lease a home apartment to somebody, then next door lease a restaurant or a bar. The occupation of the family home impossible to be in quiet possession.
So it means that if I move to a place that sometimes you move to a place, like I've seen it even with me personally, you move to a place, it's a very nice place, it's more of residential homes, and then all of a sudden there is there's something that crops up from the neighborhood, like maybe you can get an entertainment joint cropping up from in the neighborhood, the next building. Is that even right?
No, from the way the town is planned, there's activities which are planned for every section. So if that place has been planned for residential place, a residential abode for people, then you'd wonder how even the permit and the lease was registered over that place. So you'd find yourself having to go to court under the environmental law to complain about the noise, and maybe to have the city council cancel the liquor license for that joint.
And still talking about premises and everything else, there is this issue where tenants usually end up vacating people from their residential places or maybe business premises. And I just want to know, what does the law say when it comes to landlord when he wants to vacate me from my home, from my place?
The way the law is written, it's assumed that you two will come to an agreement. So, for example, if there is a time period which the tenancy agreement has been given, he can give maybe notice according to that tenancy agreement. It will be a month or 2 months or 3 months, according to how that tenancy agreement has been drafted. If there's no tenancy agreement, the law is that the period within which you pay rent is when the notice period applies. So if you pay your rent monthly, the notice period at law is 1 monthly. If you're paying the rent quarterly, it's quarterly. Now, if it's agricultural land and you pay rent according to the seasons, so you'll have to give notice of 1 more season. So it's dependent on those periods. If, for example, there is no obedience to that notice, the landlord can still not evict you forcefully. You'll have to get a court order. And most of those court orders are issued according to the lease that you have.
You have just talked about tenancy agreement. I'm just curious to know about this tenancy agreement that you have between you and maybe a tenant and a landlord or something like that, or the owner of the premise. When you're making this kind of an agreement, do you have to involve an advocate or a lawyer or something like that?
It is advisable to involve a lawyer.
Yes.
And most of the tenancy agreements are registrable under the Lands Act and under the Registration of Documents Act, so as to make them valid. So if you find yourself not being able to have the agreement stamped, it cannot be used as evidence in the court of law. If it's not registered, you'd have disputes as to where you got the head title. So, for example, if somebody is renting to you a premise where he's just a squatter or he's a pretender about the land, you'd be able to know quite easily if you're able to get the original lease or title deed and be able to register the lease onto the landlord's title or lease. So most of the time you have to be very careful with land transactions because even if it is a house or a small shop, it is still a part of land. So you have to be careful because you are investing a lot of money sometimes in business. And sometimes you're also investing in your family's safety in a place where you should know who the owner is. And you should be able to have some backup. So advocates are really important in that regard. And because of the ease with which so many people are doing it, it's easy just to approach an advocate.
Okay, great. And sometimes I know there's sometimes that actually a landlord can give you a notice to vacate immediately. So I'd just like to know, what are some of the conditions that can make a landlord or the owner of the premise to make you vacate immediately?
What happens with that one? It depends on the terms of the agreement. For example, you might find in the agreement it says if there is any criminal activities, prostitution, drugs, or things that are likely to bring immediate liability to the landlord, the landlord may have reason to immediately ask you to leave. However, from the landlord and tenant law in Kenya, it's not very clear what those circumstances are. It is left to the parties to make an agreement. Otherwise, you'd have to fall back to the Landlord and Tenant Act 1885 of the UK, which is applicable here in Kenya, and other Landlord and Tenant Acts which the UK has been able to enact over the years. We have not been able to amend our laws in regards to landlord and tenant in regards to that relationship. So we rely mostly on the agreements and the common law.
Okay, there are some cases sometimes when you are told to maybe come, like this time of COVID-19, guys are having a lot of financial constraints out here. So you get somebody cannot be able to pay even rent, and then it reaches a moment where your belongings are kind of confiscated by the owner of the house. So I just like to know, is there anything a tenant can do legally to help them get back their belongings taken by their landlords due to arrears of or unpaid rents?
What usually happens in those circumstances? You approach the magistrate's court if the rent is above 2,500, and you get an order to stay that kind of sale and sometimes to revert the property. If the rent is less than 2,500, you have to approach the rent restriction tribunal and be able to obtain certain protections. However, in those circumstances, the COVID-19 has left the government with some few remedies by making certain orders against such activity during the time of this disaster. So you might find yourself, the easiest way is to approach the police station and report the matter to the police. And the police will be able now to pursue it as a matter of trespass, because that tries to take the property the landlord has been curtailed by the state.
Okay, and I was having this conversation before I just came into for this interview with you. I had this conversation with some of my colleagues in the office, and they are telling me that apparently there is one of them where he stays. He has to go for about they have to pay a deposit of 2 months. And, you know, for some of us where we stay, it's just 1 month deposit. So is there a clear way on how much deposit you're supposed to pay before you get into a new place?
There is no clear direction.
Yes.
Only the traditional activity, the customs of the market.
Yes.
So if, for example, you find 2 months deposit,
yes,
you might want to secure that by a tenancy agreement.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you can't agree, don't enter into the premises.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. And talking about deposit, I want you to tell us what is really the importance of this deposit when it comes to landlords and tenants? What's really the importance of deposit? Because it's a very big thing when it comes to getting into a new place.
The importance of deposit, the major reason why there is such a thing is to secure the property. What happens is that you're giving somebody your property and anything can happen. You can find a few things have been damaged, and you have no recourse because the rent has not been paid prior to the month ending.
Okay.
So that is the major reason we have deposit.
Okay.
So that at least the landlord, having given up some real property into the care of somebody, that person will be able to take care of that property.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. And as we wind up, and you've talked about destruction and everything else, there is this story that it was not a long time ago, and it was run everywhere else. It was also a buzz in the media and the social rostrums, where there was this landlord who actually came to and checked the roof and the windows of the tenant who didn't pay for the premises. Is that even legal? Is it even supposed to be done that way?
No, that is illegal behavior.
Yes.
The only right a landlord has when there is an unpayment of rent is to levy distress. And he has to follow the Distress of Rent Act to the letter.
Okay.
He cannot go outside that act.
Okay.
So he has to levy distress only on the properties of the tenant inside the premises.
Okay.
He cannot evict the tenant or destroy the property.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Kevin Noho, advocate.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
That's
a very insightful way, because I know most of us out here are affected by all these shenanigans of tenants and landlords.
No worries.
I know very well that Remi Kipchirchir, this should be one of those interviews that you have really waited for, because niliona ulikuwa umeniandikia kwamba you're really looking forward to know how you can deal with your landlord. Juu amekusumbua sana. And I can also see Joe from Umoja. We had earlier talked about the story about the lookalike for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And Joe from Umoja, the lookalike is from Umoja. And I asked you, have you ever come across Mr. Gitonga, who is the lookalike for President Kenyatta? And you told me that you're going to look for him very soon. I wish you well in your endeavors, Joe from Umoja. Let's move on to something to do with matatus. I don't know about you during this COVID-19 pandemic. Have you ever... What is the last time you went to a matatu and they gave you a sanitizer, or you washed your hand before you got into a matatu? Because millions of Kenyans use matatus every day to commute in their daily activities. This therefore gives the matatu operators no option but to fumigate and ensure proper hygienical standards for their customers. It is with this in mind that matatus in different parts of the country have been undergoing inspections by the National Transport and Safety Authority. Let's get in and listen.
Tuko hapa kuhakikisha kwamba yale magari ya uchukuzi ya matatu ambayo yanaendesha biashara yao katika eneo hili yanatimiza yale mahitaji ya Minister of Health kulingana na mambo ya COVID-19.
Sekta yetu ya matatu tunajaribu kufanya ile inawezekana. Tunajaribu kuambia watu waweke vitu kama sanitizers kwa magari, watu wafae mask na usafi kuwe kwa gari.
So far we've done a good job. We've disinfected the buildings, houses, offices, vehicles, and today at Gong Stadium we've managed to disinfect more than 100 vehicles.
Ninyi ndio ambassador wa barabara.
If you don't do the right thing, hata abiria mwenyewe hatafanya hivyo.
Actually, you know very well, during this pandemic time, when you take a matatu, it's your right, my friend. It's your right to get a sanitizer or wash your hands before you board the matatu, because you never know. You might be touching on some surfaces in the matatu and then unapeleka corona nyumbani. So let us be careful during this COVID-19 time. And let's move on with our stories. And there is a residents of Petangwa sub-county in Kilifi County, Ganze constituency, want the national government to sack the assistant chief for what they term as immoral ways. According to the residents, the assistant chief is preying on their wives and girls. Gilbert Kithi, the assistant chief, says it wasn't me.
Nilipokuwa napita nikamwona sub-chifu akiwa anavaa nguo. Mimi nikapita hiyo pikipiki, kuwekea pikipiki. Alafu baadaye nikarudi, nikamkuta huyo chifu tena na huyo msichana wakiwa wameshikana tena.
Yule msichana mimi nilikuwa nimeongea naye lakini tumekubaliana.
Machifu wanachezea watoto, wanachezea bibi za watu, na nikambe hiyo haichukuliwi hatua.
Hapa mpaka Januari kama watoto watarudi shule, ni mimba ngapi zitapatikana, zitajitokeza katika hii sublocation yetu ikiwa huyu chief amezembea?
Tulikuwa tunalaumu sana wale vijana wa bodaboda. Lakini sasa hivi vijana bodaboda, afadhali wa vijana bodaboda, huyo sabu chifu ndiye amekuwa hatari zaidi juu ya watoto wa shule.
Tunaomba serikali ichunguze machifu wetu na iweke mikakati kwa machifu. Hata wazee wa vijiji huwa wanashindwa hata kuripoti hizi kesi kwa sababu machifu ndio wanafanya makosa.
Hiyo ripoti kuhusu assistant chief ya Petangwa tulipata na tunajaribu kufanya uchunguzi wetu ili tuone solution.
Protest all over the world. And in Israel, 10,000 protesters gathered on Saturday outside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's official residence, and thousands more across the country in demonstrations against the government for the fourth week in a row. Police in Jerusalem attempted to bring the demonstrators to an end shortly after midnight by airing an announcement over the loudspeakers. Police started evacuating protesters from the area around the residence around half an hour later. The protesters demanded that Netanyahu resign over his corruption charges that have been notable for their relative intensity and allegations of police misconduct, as well as violent assaults on protesters who say the aggressors were right-winged extremists.
I personally don't like Bibi, so I would like him out. But more importantly, I just want a stable government for all of us. The world is going nuts right now. How are the people that are supposed to work for us, to represent us, they're not taking care of us. So we can't sit back.
I feel like many young people in Israel and around the world feel like the whole democratic system and our politicians and government, really, it's not an ideological matter, it's a leadership matter. They really don't care about us.
We're angry about everything. We're angry about having an insignificant government that can't even pass a budget bill on time. We're facing a fourth election because they don't know how to run the government. They don't know how to take care of us, or they're just not willing to.
Let's head straight to Belarus, and protest actually erupted across the Belarus following a presidential election, as preliminary results showed that President Alexander Lukashenko has been re-elected. Belarus opposition leader Stavlenka Tikhanovsky has rejected official elections, results that gave a landslide victory to strongman leader Alexander Lukashenko and triggered a brutal crackdown by police. The protesters actually erupted across the eastern European country on Sunday evening after exit polls pointed to a win for Mr. Lukashenko. Belarus security forces were seen beating protesters, with activists saying at least one person had died and many more had been injured. Belarus Electoral Commission confirmed that Mr. Lukashenko won on Monday with preliminary results, giving him 80.2% of the vote, and Mrs. Tinakoviaka, whose rallies have drawn huge crowds in the recent weeks, with just 9.9%. And let's talk about something to do with creativity of Kenyans when it comes to this issue of COVID-19. And Moya Brethren Boarding Primary School in Kirinyaga County has been converted to chicken farm due to COVID-19 pandemic. Joseph Maina, the director of the school, now says that since the pandemic started and schools forced to close down, he decided to find an activity that would help him pay his bills, and the chicken business is doing just fine.
We had nothing to do, and we had to take a bit of time expecting the government or this disease to subside. But unfortunately, it has not until now. And the plans are it will be opened by January if this disease subside or get to a level where it can be controlled. And because of that, we decided not to stay just like that, because our school parents were the income. We were getting the income from the parents. And now that we don't have pupils, there is no parent who is even willing to pay the school fees. And we have wanted them to pay in advance, but they have not paid. So we started now this business of rearing these chicks so that we may keep even ourselves busy and also create some finances for myself and my.
Yeah, you know very well, during this time, you don't just sit back and start saying that, you know, I cannot pay my bills, please help me. Sometimes, you know, God gave you the mind to be very creative. Just be creative with your mind. I'm so sure there is something that you can be able to do during the COVID-19 pandemic. And now that we have just got used to the masks and face shield, are we ready to make the switch to shields? Because a recent published article in the Journal of the American Medical Association urged that a face shield could better help reduce the transmission of the coronavirus. So what's the final word? Let's find out the pros and cons of both the face shield compared to masks.
The only pro of a face mask is, yes, it does form a physical impediment to droplets that may emanate from your mouth when you're talking or when you're breathing. However, it hasn't been established yet that decreases transmission of this virus. So there is this theoretical idea that it impedes the motion of droplets to come out of your mouth, and that may decrease transmission. The cons of them are the fact that they give people a false sense of security, and people use them as a substitute for social distancing and a substitute for not washing their hands. The other con is that people touch their face a lot more when they're wearing the mask. People with masks also don't often wash them as much as they need to wash them. And those masks themselves can be contaminated not only with the novel coronavirus, but with other types of pathogens. And these are strewn around city streets and sidewalks, as well as in a person's house, where they may contaminate things secondarily because they're not washing or taking care of that mask. So those are some of the cons that we see with household mask wearing. The pros of a face shield are that they cover not only your mouth and your nose, they cover your eyes as well, and you can be infected with the coronavirus through your eyes. So that is a benefit over and above a face mask. Another benefit is that they're translucent. You can see through them. They're less obstructive to your mouth and your nose, so they may be more comfortable to wear. The third is that they're reusable. You can clean them off and you can wear them again. Many people with face masks, for example, will throw them out. They'll fail to wash them because they're harder to wash. They need to be washed in a washing machine, for example, versus a face shield that can be washed with household detergent because it's basically just a plexiglass covering that you wear. And I do think that there's emerging data that face shields may be a superior way of protecting yourself and others from the coronavirus. For me, the cons are they may be more expensive, they may be harder to obtain, they can't necessarily be homemade as easier, but I do think that the cons are largely outweighed by the pros of using a face shield.
There are, however, drawbacks to the shield. First, research is limited. It's unclear how effective shields actually are. Secondly, shields do not seal the entire face. Contaminants may still enter your system if droplets are released behind or to the side of users.
Though face shields are open below and on the sides, I don't believe that that's a major risk for transmission. Remember that these respiratory droplets are likely to fall to the ground within 6 feet. They act under the action of gravity. So to see an upwardly moving droplet would be, to defy the law of gravity. So I don't think that there is much of a concern with the openings there. Actually, those openings may make them much more easier to wear, much more easier to comply with. And I would say the benefit of not touching your face and protecting your eyes probably outweighs any other deficiency that people might postulate about these face shields.
I don't know about you, but for me, I prefer to put them on. All of them. Face mask and the face shield. All of them. But that's all we have for you this Monday on This Is The Day. Let's do this tomorrow. Same place, same time. Have a great night and God bless.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.